Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier in the day, we showed you visuals of proof of Pak infiltration into Indian soil as two terrorists were blown up by a landmine. But here is the reality. As those two terrorists were blown up by that landmine, this terrorist, Tabarruk, has been caught alive. And while his life was saved by the army doctors, and he confessed to not just being a Pakistani national, but being sent there by a Pak army colonel. This terrorist has been captured alive. He's named the Pak army colonel as a recruiter. These are the visuals that came in earlier in the day. This where the infiltration bid on the 22nd of August was foiled by the landmines which blew away two of those terrorists, which can be seen in the middle of the screen there. And one of these, he said there were 4 or 5 of them, so he was saved. And today, a day and a half later, he's in a position to come out and speak consciously to the media, where he confesses of Pakistan's plan to attack Indian army posts. He was sent there with money given 30,000 Pakistani rupees. That's what he has said. He's a resident of Kotli in POK. He was captured in 2016 also, but he was actually repatriated in 2017. He's confessed with the Pak Army's plot to attack forward Indian Army posts. He was asked to come and do a recce. 30,000 Pakistani rupees, but more importantly, he's named the Pak Army colonel as Colonel Yunus Chaudhary, saying he gave the go-ahead for the attack on the 21st of August and also to try and bring in arms and ammunition which have been recovered from them. He's also carried out recce of the Indian forward posts. They came there with the idea of attacks at the opportune time. Their plot was not just recce, but also attacking forward army posts. What we are getting to you now, ladies and gentlemen, is the confessions of this second Tabarruk Hussain making big confessions, admitting to Pak army hand in the terror attacks in India. A Pak army colonel, Yunus Chaudhary, asked me to carry out recce for the attack, which they would do on a future date, and paid me 30,000 Pak rupees. Listen in.
अरे फिरने सुनने लगे आया था।
हैं?
फिरने सुनने लगे आया था।
कितने लोग और आए थे आपके घर?
4-5 लोग थे।
4-5 लोग थे। किस मकसद से आए थे पोस्ट के पास?
मरने के लिए।
मरने के लिए आए थे? क्या बोला गया था वहाँ पे? किसने भेजा था?
चौधरी यूनुस ने।
हैं?
चौधरी यूनुस ने।
वो कौन है? चौधरी यूनुस कौन है?
चौधरी यूनुस कौन है?
आर्मी है।
हैं?
आर्मी है।
आर्मी है?
उन्हें पैसे दिए।
कितने
पैसे दिए थे?
3000।
3000?
ट्रेनिंग उधर ट्रेनिंग कितने दी थी? ISI ने
30,000 rupees भेजा किस लिए था? मरने के लिए. They were sent as fidain or suicide attackers who were supposed to go ahead and kill and also die in the process, given 30,000 rupees to do so. Tejinder Sodhi joins us live. Tejinder, big catch by the Indian Armed Forces in that infiltration bid that was foiled because of a landmine, and it's been captured on camera. He says 4-5 aadmi the. Is he the only one who's been caught alive?
Indeed, Anand, this is a big catch for the army on the line of control, which clearly exposes Pakistan's hand, and also it shows you the human side of Indian army and the brutal side of the Pakistan army. While Pakistan army chose him, gave him money, recruited him to come to cross the line of control and die while carrying out attack on the Indian army. But see, the human side of the Indian army, that the very same army on which this Tabarruk Hussain, the terrorist, came to attack, came to kill the Indian army personnel, when they found him injured, they took him to the hospital, they gave their own blood to save his life. So these are the two contrary sides of one, the Indian army with a human heart which saved the life of a terrorist who had come to kill them. and on the other side, Pakistan Army, which recruited him and sent him across to get killed in the hands of the Indian Army. As you rightly pointed out that this is a big catch, he has revealed that this was a group of 4 to 5 people who were tasked by Colonel Yunus Chaudhry. We are told that Colonel Yunus Chaudhry's unit is also deployed in the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, from where he chooses vulnerable youth, recruits them into terror ranks, and motivates them to come across the line of control to carry out terror attacks within the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. This terrorist has revealed that he was tasked by Colonel Yunus Chaudhry to carry out attack on the Indian Army position.
Right.
Basically, he was a part of a border action team, a bad team, a notorious Pakistan Army's bad action team, border action team, which carries out attack on the forward posts or along the line of control. We have seen in the recent past, whenever there is a bad attack on the security forces, they decapitate, they mutilate the bodies of our dead soldiers, and they take some body parts as a trophy. But now the Indian Army is fully prepared to tackle with any such situation. So you can see that before these terrorists, they could carry out any attack on our security forces, before they could infiltrate into the Indian side, they were identified, their location was identified, and 2 of them, they were killed on the spot. One of them, Tabarruk Hussain, who was injured, he was captured by the Indian Army, and some of those who accompanied them, who were just on the other side of the fence, they managed to flee. So, yes, Anand.
Well, thanks for your inputs, Tejinder Sodhi. So very clearly the Pak Army hand proved, that's the straight question that we are asking, and direct role, and is this not brazen ceasefire violation? We were taking this conversation, we were doing this conversation earlier this evening on The Nation at 5, and I have our guests who are joining then, along with Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza, joining us again this time. So Major General Dhruv Katoch is back with us, Director India Foundation, Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF and Strategic Affairs Expert with us, along with Amjad Ayub Mirza, who's joining us via Skype from Glasgow. Now, General Dhruv Katoch, we talked about the infiltration, and Sushant Sareen said that Indian Army right now does not want to escalate matters and give Pak Army a handle. But how do you deal with the likes of a Colonel Yunus Chaudhry, who will not only identify somebody who has been repatriated back in 2017 on humanitarian grounds, knows that he's got 6 siblings and mouths to feed. The condition in POJK is such that people are desperate to do whatever. This guy openly says, "Mujhe Yunus Chaudhry ne bheja marne ke liye."
Anand, something comes out very clearly from this confession. One, life is so cheap in Pakistan that they will send a suicide bomber for 30,000 Pakistani rupees, which in real terms is about 12,000 Indian rupees. That is how cheap life can get there. It is absolutely worthless. One. Number two, we don't really need to prove the complicity of the Pakistan Army. We have known this now for 30 years. But the question is, we are still maintaining a ceasefire, and the logic given was, okay, the threshold as of now is low. My point actually is quite different. It is irrelevant of the threshold. We need to have deterrence. And I am not saying that we break the ceasefire all across the line of control. I am saying any person from the Pakistan military who has given support to terrorist actions will be treated as the enemy and destroyed. Now, if the Pakistan Army subsequently wishes to escalate it, that is up to them. But from our side, the posts which were alongside where this infiltration was attempted, they have assisted terrorism into India. They are the enemy, and we are legally obliged to destroy them. Now, this is the message as a deterrence which must go across. It must be put across as a military doctrine. And it must be conveyed to the Pakistanis that any post which is giving support to terrorists will be destroyed. Now, shift the onus to them. We have been defensive for too long. We must take up the offense once again. And if they still continue, then take on a few surgical operations across the line of control, the way we have done earlier, and destroy and raise their camps to the ground. Deterrence is the key. I'm afraid we are not being deterrent enough, and we need to start it now.
Yeah, and we don't need to put bodies behind, we don't need to put bodies across, we don't need to send bodies across. When, BrahMos, by default, there was a technical fault and it lost its way, the Pakistanis got spooked. we can always send in a swarm of drones. अरे टेस्ट फायर कर रहे थे, गलती से उधर आ गया and पूरा आपका POJ के पूरा कैंप वहाँ पे टेरर बेसिस डिस्ट्रॉय हो गए. सॉरी, गलती हो गई. We don't need to put bodies now. Today we have the technology, and if they can do multiple drone drops to drop arms and ammunition, why can't we send just one swarm and kill and finish off the entire terror network there? And also send a personal message to Yunus Chaudhary that put some value to life, Sushant Sari, and tell them improve the quality of life rather than sending them here to die.
Anand, I agree with what General Katoch is saying. I don't, it's not that I'm in disagreement with him. But look, it entirely depends upon how much escalation you want. If you take an action like the ones you are suggesting, which we can take, then the other side also gets a vote. And so I think maybe I'm not privy to how the government of India thinks. But maybe the calculation is that, let's take this, a step-by-step kind of an approach. Let's not have an immediate reaction. That is one part of it. Another part of it, where I have a slight, I don't think we disagree really, because I agree with General Katoch when he says that we don't have to prove anything about, what the Pakistan Army is doing. They've been doing it for decades now. But I think there is something to be said for lawfare. Now, once you get hold of the name of the colonel, and this is not a Colonel Sayyid, this is a very specific name, Yunus Chaudhary, right? And you have the name of this character who has been caught.
Tabarruk Hussain.
Maybe it would have been a good idea that if you had managed to get, and I don't know whether the Indian agencies have managed to get, but some kind of mugshots of that colonel, his Pakistan Army number, this fellow's national identity card, you could try and look at exactly to prove his identity that he's a Pakistani. So that would be part of the kind of lawfare exercises which we are supposed to be doing. The third question and the third issue is, I disagree with Tejinder, your correspondent, when he says that Indian Army was from the goodness of its heart. It is not the business of the Indian Army to show goodness of the heart to enemies. I think what the Indian Army did was a very smart thing. Smart thing in the sense that they saved this guy's life simply because they could make him sing like a canary, right? So that's the smart thing to do. Otherwise, ideally, I believe that the Indian Army should shoot these guys down without any mercy shown to them. And the last thing I want to say is, again, taking off from your report, if this fellow had been repatriated about 3, 4, 5 years back, I think it raises a very serious question of what quote unquote is called accidental crossing over of LOC. Somebody was coming to see an Indian film, somebody was chasing his goat. It's like what used to happen in Kashmir in the old days. Nobody was chucking stones, somebody was coming from tuition, somebody was coming from a cricket match.
Correct.
It was only ghosts who were throwing stones. So the point which I'm trying to make is that there are these so-called accidental crossovers, and I think we need to put a stop to it.
Nothing is accidental.
To it because there is nothing accidental about those crossovers, and you have to put these people through the mill because it is very clear from this particular episode that these are people or kids who are sent to try and scout around, to try and see where things are, to try and see how
they're somewhere trained to lose their way, and in the end and in the process spot everything and go back and report. Amjad Ayub Mirza.
And Anand, if it's a 15-16-year-old kid, everybody's heart starts bleeding, and you say, okay, fine, repatriate the poor kid back, right? I think you need to probably have a review of that particular policy,
right?
And maybe these people as infiltrators, as saboteurs, as potential terrorists who need to be shown no mercy.
True. Colonel Yunus Chaudhary is currently posted in POJK. That's exactly what General Dhuvkar Toch has said. So उसके बारे में उनके बारे में पता तो लगा ही सकते हैं. तो जरा उनका चेहरा वेरा भी बता दें. अमजद अयूब मिर्जा. It should not be difficult to get. और इनके पास पैसे कहाँ से आ रहे हैं? 30,000 रुपए पाकिस्तानी कर्नल के पास आ कहाँ से हैं?
Can you repeat the question, please?
I said Pak Colonel Yunus Chaudhary has been named. Amjad Ayub Mirza. He's paid this Tabarrak Hussain 30,000 rupees to go kill and be killed.
Anand. Yeah, Anand, I think that more important to note is the timing of this infiltration. You see, infiltration is nothing new to us. It has been happening for many, many years. But then there are gaps. Now, the timing of this infiltration, provocative infiltration, Fadain mission comes days after the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif, made a public statement that they are considering trade with India. Because the Pakistani civilian government have always been willing to talk about trade with India. It is the Pakistani military generals and the GHQ and the ISI headquarters in Apara that look at this trade as a threat to their hegemony, political hegemony, because they have built their strength. I mean, not economic strength, but their strength as controlling Pakistan's political game as defenders of Pakistan against India. The second thing to note is that now we are heading towards elections in Jammu Kashmir, and we have said that about 25 lakh new voters are to be added, and Mehbooba Mufti and Umar Farooq Abdullah have suddenly woken up and started to make a lot of statements. Now, these things, as we come closer to the election period, infiltrations are going to increase. And then they will be portrayed as...
And it's also the approach of the winter months. We had actually done
Indian
a story
Army.
on the 26th of July. We'll take this conversation forward. I've run out of time, unfortunately, and the link with you is a little poor, Amjad Ayub Mirza. So, but 26th of July, we told you that the jihadis are getting desperate. They're pushing the army to breach the line of control because they want to infiltrate. We've seen the proof. We've also heard the confession. Direct involvement of the army also proven. Winding up the right stand on that note, Zakir Reddy with Brass Tacks.